Yo, so y'all know the drill at this point. Let's see who we can piss off today by simply talking about the most well-respected tier list in the Wuthering Waves community, at least on the EN side of things, right? Here we are again at Prydwen.gg, taking a look at the Tower of Adversity tier list for patch 1.2 Part 2. And there's some good reason for that, because we recently had Xiangli Yao added into the game. That was actually like a couple of weeks ago. I'm a bit late to this. I don't know if you guys noticed, I took about 2 weeks off. I needed some time away because I was dealing with a whole bunch of IRL stuff. We also ended up having two big changes in the tier list as well, with Yuanwu going down. There's reason for that, and there's also reason for Jianxin going down as well. Now, we talked about how Jianxin should probably get bumped down the last time we covered her, or this entire tier list, I should say, the last time we did one last patch, and wouldn't you know it, she ended up getting bumped down. And we'll go over that in just a second, and we'll also go over why Yuanwu got brought down as well. But first, let's take a look at Xiangli Yao's placement, why he's here, what this means for the game, etc, etc. And just a heads up, we are going to talk about his weapon as well, because I think this is a meta-relevant weapon and a very impactful weapon for the game. I think it's going to be relatively future-proof and be able to be used in more than just him, so I recommend sticking around to the end or potentially skipping ahead if you felt so inclined. He's sitting here at tier 0.5, which is pretty darn good. Let's make this a little bit bigger for you. Now, obviously, we have Jinzhou sitting here at a tier of her own. It's basically the Jinzhou tier up here by herself. And some of us were wondering if Xiangli Yao might get put up there with her. Like, is he relevant enough for that? But again, this tier list is mostly based off of like their solo output with some other things in mind as well. Like, they do factor in a lot of different things. For example, the meta does define where they place sometimes. For example, that's actually why Yuanwu got bumped down and Jianxin got bumped down as the meta developed. It wasn't their personal performance that caused them to get bumped down. It was their performance overall on teams that they were relevant on. So it's interesting to see that he didn't make it up there, unfortunately, but he's doing pretty darn well, considering Kuro, who is kind of like his rival. They're both, you know, Electro main DPS characters, and he's sitting up here at tier 0.5. He's at 1.5, like 2 tiers above him. And a lot of people did not like Kuro. A lot of people really liked Kuro. Some people felt like he was too annoying to play, like getting his synergies to work well. His rotation was kind of weird and awkward. A lot of people didn't really like that. I personally never had a problem with him whatsoever. I actually really liked him, but I also have Yinlin, which really helps make him work. If you didn't have Yinlin, he simply wasn't he wasn't bringing the juice, you know what I mean, into Tower of Adversity without her. But with her in the game, and she was a 1.0 character, it kind of fixed a lot of his problems. Not entirely, because his rotation was still a little bit weird. If you missed out on certain parts of his bonuses, his damage would kind of fall off, etc, etc. We don't really have that same problem with Xiangli Yao. He's a lot easier to use, and his performance is just better. He has a super powerful nuke attached to his burst. He's a really strong character, and he's immediately performing very well. And if you already have a Yinlin because you were already playing her with Kuro, this is just a massive upgrade. In fact, like, some of you obviously, like Jinzhou, let's just be honest, she's in a tier of her own. He's not up here with her, but he is a really good tier 0.5 character with being like paired with Yinlin. Like, it's just these two are like peanut butter and jelly. They're super duper good with each other. And so I think that his performance is really solid. Like, compared to some of these other tier 0.5 characters, for example, like Jian is still really good. This guy's brain dead easy to use. That's one reason why I feel like he's up here. He's not bad. Don't get it twisted, okay? I just think out of these 4 tier 0.5 characters, Xiangli Yao is definitely one of the best ones here. For example, Encore is really good, but she is more difficult to use at her full potential. And if you're not using her at her full potential, which she is a more complicated character to get the best damage out of her, you usually would want to do a quick swap team, or, you know, really get her rotations down like really well in order for her to get the right performance. Xiangli Yao, at least in my opinion, is easier to use to get that really top tier damage out of him, kind of like Jian. Jian's the most brain dead, I think, DPS in the entire game, to be fair. But I think Xiangli Yao gets more out of his damage than someone like Jian, and I think that he has just really, really good support coming out of Yinlin. Now, yeah, sure, that is kind of a higher investment team. You need to have a Yinlin in order to make him like work really well, or at least to his best potential, right? But I think that he's performing very, very well in the current meta that we have. You know what I mean? His placement on this list is definitely with Yinlin in mind. So keep that in mind, right? If you don't have Yinlin, maybe he might not be as like strong to you, but he does have other good supports besides Yinlin. So just keep that in mind, right? Now let's go ahead and we'll come back to him. I want to talk about Yuanwu and Jianxin before I forget. First of all, with Jianxin, she gets moved down because I talked about this a million different times. Baizhi is just better. When you think about the fact that she's fitting into a survivability role, a sustainability role, she just isn't as good as Baizhi. Baizhi is a better healer. She just does the job better. And one thing to keep in mind is that she's a 4-star character being rated at sequence 4. Actually, that's sequence 2. My bad. It's even lower than I thought. I mean, take a look at this. These are the resonance chains, what they're going to call sequence. So you got sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At sequence 5, she gets a really, really powerful effect. If a team member is knocked out when Baizhi is alive on the team, immediately revive them and restore 100% of their max HP. This effect can be triggered once every 10 minutes. Yeah, sure, that's a pretty long reset time, but bro, that can come in really, really clutch for a lot of players. And that's not even her highest one, right? That's not her highest resonance chain. So this being, they're called resonance chains, sequence, resonance chain, they kind of are used interchangeably. Dude, she's really, really strong. She's currently being rated at sequence 2. Dude, I know it's only 1.2, but a lot of players actually have, pretty high sequences for some of these characters. So whenever she gets rated at a higher sequence, and this starts to become more relevant, she's going to be like a lot better performing than a lot of people I think are giving her credit for. Now, yeah, sure, okay, we got some other characters coming down the line. Shorekeeper's gonna be coming out pretty soon, so she's not going to be as relevant when Shorekeeper comes out, but you realistically do need 3 teams to fully clear Tower of Adversity. I know some people, it's still early on in the game's lifespan, they don't necessarily get too high in Tower of Adversity, so maybe they only mostly care about 2 of their teams performing well. And so yeah, sure, Verina's still going to be up here, like maybe not a tier 0. I think she's going to bump down to tier 0.5 when Shorekeeper comes out. And you're going to probably see Baizhi stay exactly where she is, I would say. And one of the main reasons why she's getting bumped down is also not just because Baizhi outperforms her, it's for this specific role, of course. It's also because the enemies in Tower of Adversity used to be more mobs, and they're moving away from mobs and becoming more solo bosses, or a few enemies on the field rather than a ton of enemies on the field. So she's not as strong as a character like Baizhi in a situation like that, when you think about it that way, right? And let's talk about Yuanwu, right? Because Yuanwu is mostly relevant on this list because of Jinzhou, right? Jinzhou makes him actually relevant because he can basically fix some of her kit, get her through her rotation faster, get her some of her energy faster, get her to her bursts faster, and that's really, really important, right? That's going to turn into a ton of damage. He like unironically speeds up her process and makes her really, really strong and just nukes everything. But we recently had Zheji release in the game, and Zheji, I should say, if I'm saying her name right, is actually better than Yuanwu for that specific role. She kind of ends up doing like several roles at the same time, making Jinzhou better. And so that's like immediately going to make him less relevant if the main reason why he was relevant is because of Jinzhou, and Zheji makes her like even stronger than she was with a character like Yuanwu. What Yuanwu could do, she can do better, and she can do even more than that, immediately making her the like best thing you could pair with Jinzhou instead of somebody like Yuanwu. And there's nothing else going on with the list. It's just these two getting bumped down and the addition of Xiangli Yao. And again, Xiangli Yao is performing very, very well. I would highly recommend picking up his weapon. Now, obviously, I don't recommend literally spending money in the game. Obviously, you know, you might have some extra foraging tide. You might be able to put a couple of pulls towards. Maybe you have some extra astrite because you didn't have to pull the character. He's literally free, right? And, you know, although Shorekeeper is coming out, a lot of people did skip Zhezhe, so they didn't necessarily, so they probably are able to potentially pull the weapon. Let's take a look at the weapon here. The crit rate stat here is huge, okay? This is big, all right? And the bonus right here, gain 12% attribute damage bonus when using Resonance Liberation. The wielder gains 48% Resonance Liberation damage bonus for 8 seconds. This effect can be extended by 5 seconds each time Resonance skills are cast, up to 3 times. Okay, he doesn't necessarily need this bottom part here, but dude, this is huge. Like, his most important attribute is his ult, right? His big, powerful nuke. That's what this helps him deal more damage with. This is a really, really solid weapon for him, and it's pretty much future-proof because there's not a whole lot of good gauntlets in the game for DPS characters right now. Most of them are like for supports or, you know, for maybe healing or whatever. You can use that one with Jianxin that, like, you know, a lot of people have been using to heal with. There's not a really, really solid, you know what I mean, choice for the gauntlet. Yeah, sure, you do technically have, what is it, the Abyss Surges, but the Abyss Surges doesn't have as good of a stat, right? The Abyss Surges here has an attack stat, right? And this, the energy regeneration, he doesn't really need that, right? He barely needs energy regen at all in order for his kit to work. Like, you can pick that up off of the substat, right? So this is still a baseline, good baseline to have. And you have the Battle Pass weapon, which does have some crit rate on it. A pretty solid option. If you have the Battle Pass gauntlet, that's actually pretty good. But this weapon right here is so good, and I think it's going to be pretty future-proof for a long time, considering the availability of gauntlets is not very high, right? So I think even if you don't necessarily use it on him like forever, you might still be able to use it on a future character at some point too. And everybody has this guy because he's free, so this weapon will be relevant for a good while. But anyways, Xiangli Yao plays pretty well, and I think he's really, really strong, especially with Yinlin in the game. I'm really, really stoked that they gave us a actually good free character. Like, it's not just some free piece of shit. Like, this guy's actually good. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Consider leaving a like and subscribe. Peace out.